When the body goes silent, the soul speaks. What if the moment you stop chasing desire is the exact second your soul finally wakes up? Society screams that a woman's worth lies in being desired, pursued, validated. But what happens when you dare to step away from that noise? When you choose silence over fleeting passion, something extraordinary begins. Carl Jung called it a whisper from the depths, a call to rediscover the parts of you buried under expectations, heartbreaks, and the endless hunt for approval. This isn't about loneliness, it's about power. When the body goes quiet, it's not emptiness, it's a sacred space where your soul starts to speak. Picture a woman who walks away from shallow connections, not because she's broken, but because she's ready to meet herself. Her dreams grow vivid, her intuition sharpens, and a fire ignites within a fire no one else can touch. Jung believed this. Silence is where transformation begins, where repressed energy becomes strength, and where the wild woman archetype rises, untamed and unapologetic. Have you ever felt that pull, a longing you can't name? A restlessness that won't let you settle? That's not weakness. It's your soul demanding to be heard. In this video, we'll uncover the truth behind abstinence, explore real stories of women who found themselves in silence, and reveal how to embrace this journey to become whole. Ready to listen to what your soul's been trying to say? The silence is not emptiness. What does it feel like when the world expects you to be everything? Lover, partner, muse, yet you choose to step back. For many women, the decision to embrace abstinence, whether by choice or circumstance, feels like a betrayal of everything society demands. You're told your value lies in being desired, that your body must always be in motion, seeking connection, chasing passion. But what if that pause, that silence, isn't a void at all? What if it's the fertile ground where your soul begins to bloom? Carl Jung believed that when we repress our energy, whether it's desire, ambition, or the need for validation, it doesn't disappear. It transforms. And when the body goes quiet, it's not a sign of absence. It's a sacred invitation to listen to something deeper. Imagine a woman named Sarah, a 32-year-old graphic designer who spent years pouring her heart into relationships that left her drained. She chased love, thinking it would fill the ache she couldn't name. But each breakup left her more lost. Until one day, she chose to stop. No more dating apps. No more late-night texts. No more forcing herself to fit into someone else's story. At first, the silence was deafening. Friends called her crazy. Family urged her to get back out there. Society screamed that she was wasting her youth. But in that stillness, something shifted. Sarah started noticing things she'd ignored for years. Her dreams became more vivid, filled with symbols she couldn't explain. She felt a pull to journal, to sit alone with her thoughts, to ask herself questions she'd never dared to face. Who am I when no one's watching? What do I truly want? This is what Carl Jung called the transmutation of energy. When the body stops seeking external pleasure, it redirects that energy inward. It's not about shutting down, it's about waking up. The silence of abstinence becomes a canvas for the soul to paint its truth. For Sarah, it meant rediscovering her creativity. She started sketching again, something she hadn't done since college. Her intuition sharpened. She could sense when conversations or situations didn't align with her values. She began to feel a presence within her, a voice that wasn't loud but was unshakably clear. Carl Jung would say, this is the wild woman archetype, awakening the untamed, instinctual feminine that doesn't need applause or permission to exist. But let's be real, this journey isn't easy. The world doesn't celebrate a woman who steps away from desire. It fears her, A woman who chooses herself over fleeting connections becomes unpredictable, intouchable, almost dangereuse. Why? Because she's no longer playing by the rules. She's not chasing validation or bending to fit someone else's mold. Instead, she's carving her own path. And that terrifies a society built on keeping women tethered to external approval. Carl Jung's concept of the feminine unconscious comes alive here, a deep, ancient wisdom that's been buried under centuries of expectations. When a woman embraces silence, she's not retreating from life. She's reclaiming it. Consider another story, Maria, a single mother in her 40s, who spent decades prioritizing everyone else, her kids, her ex, her job. When she chose abstinence after a toxic relationship, she expected to feel empty. Instead, she found herself drawn to old hobbies, like gardening. As she tended to her plants, she realized she was tending to herself. Each seed she planted felt like a metaphor for her own growth. She started having dreams of wide-open fields, of rivers flowing freely, and she woke up with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Maria didn't just survive her silence, she thrived in it. This is the truth behind abstinence. It's not about deprivation, it's about creating space. Space to hear your own thoughts, to feel your own emotions, to reconnect with the parts of you that got lost in the noise of the world. Carl Jung believed that every moment of repression holds the seed of transformation. When you stop pouring your energy into relationships that don't serve you, that energy doesn't vanish. It gathers. It builds. It becomes a force. For some women, it shows up as creativity, like Sarah's sketches. For others, it's clarity, like Maria's newfound purpose. For you, it might be something else, entirely a book you've always wanted to write, a dream you've buried, a question you've never dared to ask. So, why does this matter? Because the silence of the body isn't a punishment, it's a portal. It's the moment when you stop running from yourself and start running toward yourself. It's where you meet the parts of you that society told you to hide, the messy, the wild, the untamed. And in that meeting, you begin to understand you are not empty. You are full of stories, dreams, and wisdom waiting to be uncovered. The question is, are you ready to listen? In the next chapter, we'll dive deeper into what happens when you face the discomfort of this silence, when you meet what Carl Jung called your shadow, and how that encounter shapes you into someone new. Facing the shadow. What happens when you stop running from the silence and start staring it down? For a woman who chooses abstinence, the quiet can feel like a mirror, one that shows not just who you are, but who you've been hiding from. Carl Jung called this the shadow, the parts of yourself you've buried, ignored, or rejected to fit the world's expectations. It's the voice you silenced to please others, the dreams you shelved to be practical, the anger you swallowed to stay nice. When the body goes quiet, the shadow doesn't stay quiet. It rises, demanding to be seen. And that moment, it's both terrifying and transformative. Picture Emily, a 29-year-old teacher who spent years being the good girl. She said yes to every date, every expectation, every role society handed her. But after a string of relationships that left her feeling invisible, she chose to step back. No more chasing love to prove her worth. At first, the silence was unbearable. Doubts flooded in. Am I enough on my own? Am I wasting my life? What if I'm unlovable? Friends told her to move on, to find someone new. But Emily wasn't running from love. She was running toward herself. And that's when the shadow appeared. Old insecurities surfaced, fears of being alone, of not being enough. Memories of past relationships stung like fresh wounds. Carl Jung would say, "This is no accident. The shadow shows up when you stop distracting yourself with external noise. It's the part of you that's been waiting for an audience your own." Facing the shadow isn't gentle. It feels like standing in a storm with nowhere to hide. For Emily, it meant confronting the truth she'd spent years seeking validation through others' affection. Every "I love you" she chased was a plea to feel whole. But in the silence of abstinence, she began to ask harder questions. Why do I need someone else to feel alive? What am I afraid of seeing in myself? These questions are the heart of Carl Jung's shadow work, a process of meeting the parts of yourself you've pushed away. It's not about fixing what's wrong, but about embracing what's real. For Emily, that meant acknowledging her anger at partners who took her for granted, her sadness for the dreams she abandoned, and her fear of being truly alone. But here's the secret. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. Carl Jung believed that what we repress doesn't vanish, it festers, shaping our choices in ways we don't even see. When a woman faces her shadow, she's not just confronting pain, she's reclaiming power. Emily started small. She wrote letters to her younger self, forgiving the mistakes she'd carried like burdens. She joined a women's group where she could share her story without judgment. Slowly, the storm inside her calmed. She didn't just survive the silence, she began to understand it. Her shadow wasn't a monster, it was a guide, pointing her toward the parts of herself she'd forgotten. Think of another woman, Lisa, a 38-year-old lawyer who walked away from a toxic marriage. In her newfound solitude, she felt like she was disappearing. The world no longer saw her as the perfect wife, and that loss of identity shook her. But in therapy, she learned about Carl Jung's shadow and began to face the resentment she'd buried for years, resentment toward her ex, her family, even herself for staying too long. She started painting, something she hadn't done since childhood, and each stroke felt like a release. Her canvases were messy, rough, full of colors she didn't know she had inside. Through her art, Lisa met her shadow, not as a flaw, but as a spark of her untamed spirit. This is where the transformation begins. Facing the shadow doesn't mean you fix yourself. It means you stop pretending. You stop hiding the parts of you that don't fit the world's script. And in that raw, honest space, something powerful emerges. Carl Jung called this the path to individuation, a journey to wholeness, where you integrate all parts of yourself, light and dark. For a woman in abstinence, this is the moment she stops seeking love to fill a void and starts loving herself fiercely, flaws and all. So, how do you start? First, give yourself permission to feel the discomfort. Write down the thoughts that scare you. What are you avoiding? What truths are you afraid to face? Second, find a safe space to explore: a journal, a therapist, a trusted friend. Let the shadow speak without judgment. Finally, do something that reconnects you to your instincts. Paint, dance, meditate, walk in nature. These acts aren't distractions, they're bridges to your deeper self. The world may tell you that a woman alone is a woman incomplete, but Carl Jung would disagree. In the silence, you're not losing yourself. You're finding yourself. You're meeting the shadow, not to fight it, but to listen. And when you do, you'll realize it's not here to break you. It's here to make you whole, ready to see what's waiting on the other side. In the next chapter, we'll explore how this journey leads to a power so profound it changes everything. The power of wholeness. What does it mean to become whole? For a woman who has walked through the silence of abstinence and faced her shadow, the journey doesn't end with self-discovery. It begins a new chapter of power. Carl Jung called this individuation the process of integrating every part of yourself: light, dark, messy, magnificent, into a whole, authentic self. When the body goes silent and the soul speaks, you're not just finding yourself, you're claiming a strength that no one can take away. This is the moment you stop seeking love to complete you and start living from a place of overflow. This is the power of wholeness. Take Rachel, a 35-year-old writer who spent years in relationships that dimmed her spark. She was always the one giving her time, her energy, her dreams, to partners who never saw her fully. When she chose abstinence after a painful breakup, she expected loneliness. Instead, she found freedom in the quiet. Rachel started meditating daily, something she'd always dismissed as too woo-woo. But in those still moments, she felt a shift. She wasn't just a writer, a daughter, or an ex. She was a force. She began writing poetry again, pouring her soul onto pages that no one else needed to read. Her words weren't for validation, they were for her. Carl Jung would say, "This is the essence of individuation, living for your own truth, not the world's applause." This power doesn't come without a fight. The world isn't kind to a woman who no longer needs to be chosen. Society expects you to stay in motion, dating, pleasing, performing. But a woman who embraces her wholeness becomes untouchable. She's not chasing fleeting connections or bending to fit someone else's story. She's writing her own. For Rachel, this meant saying no to a relationship that felt safe but uninspiring. It meant choosing herself over comfort. And in that choice, she discovered a truth. Carl Jung emphasized, when you integrate your shadow, you stop living in halves. You become whole. And that wholeness is a quiet, unshakable strength. Now, imagine Aisha, a 42-year-old nurse who spent decades caring for others' patients, family, friends. After ending a toxic engagement, she embraced abstinence, expecting it to feel like punishment. Instead, it felt like a homecoming. She started taking long walks in the park, noticing the way the trees moved in the wind, the way her thoughts flowed without interruption. She began setting boundaries, saying no to demands that drained her. Aisha realized her energy wasn't dormant, it was hers to protect. She enrolled in a dance class, moving her body, not for anyone's gaze, but for the joy of feeling alive. Carl Jung would call this a reconnection with the feminine unconscious, a deep, instinctual wisdom that knows its own worth without needing external proof. This is where the magic happens. Wholeness doesn't mean perfection, it means presence. It's the courage to stand in your truth, to love yourself fiercely, to choose what aligns with your soul. It's the moment you realize your value isn't tied to how much you're desired, but to how deeply you honor yourself. For Rachel, it was her poetry. For Aisha, it was her dancing. For you, it might be starting a project you've delayed, speaking your truth, or simply sitting in silence without fear. So, how do you step into this power? Here are 3 practical steps to begin. Practice intentional solitude. Set aside time each day to be alone with your thoughts. Journal, meditate, or simply sit quietly. Ask yourself, what do I feel right now? What do I need? This builds a relationship with your inner self. Set boundaries with confidence. Say no to relationships, conversations, or obligations that don't serve your growth. Protect your energy like it's sacred, because it is. Reconnect with your instincts. Do something that feels like you: paint, sing, garden, run. These acts aren't frivolous. They're rituals that anchor you to your core. The beauty of wholeness is that it changes how you move through the world. You no longer love from a place of need, but from a place of abundance. You don't shrink to fit someone else's story. You expand to tell your own. Carl Jung believed that a woman who integrates her shadow and embraces her silence becomes a beacon not just for herself, but for others. She shows the world what it means to be whole, to be free, to be unapologetically herself. Have you felt this shift stirring inside you? That quiet strength that says you're enough, just as you are. This is the power of wholeness, a power that doesn't shout but resonates. A power that doesn't need permission but claims its space. In our final chapter, we'll wrap up this journey with a call to embrace your transformation and share your light with the world, ready to step fully into who you're becoming when the soul takes the lead, when the body goes silent. The soul doesn't just speak, it roars. This journey through abstinence isn't about loss, it's about liberation. It's about a woman stepping away from the noise of the world to hear the truth within her. A truth Carl Jung knew as the path to wholeness. You've walked through the silence, faced your shadow, and claimed the power of being fully, unapologetically you. This isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a life where you choose yourself, where your soul sets the rhythm, and where your light burns brighter than any fleeting desire ever could. You are not empty. You are a temple, a wildfire, a story waiting to unfold. The world may try to pull you back to its expectations, but you've seen what's possible when you listen to your soul. So, keep going. Keep asking the hard questions. Keep carving your path, and share your journey with us. Drop a comment below and tell us, what did this silence teach you? How has your soul spoken to you? Your story might just light the way for someone else. If this video stirred something in you, hit that subscribe button and join the Jung Psyche Hub community. Click the bell so you never miss a step on this transformative path. Like, share, and let's spread this message to every woman ready to hear her soul's call, because when the body goes silent, the soul doesn't just speak, it changes everything. Let's keep the fire burning.